Owls in the Family, Chapter 7, Part 2. And I've got a picture of great horned owl sort of ready to hunt today. That has something to do with what's going to happen in the second part of Chapter 7. All right, the question I asked last time were, what were the 3 games that Wool used to play on poor old Mutt? And number 1 was the bone stealing game. So he would steal Mutt's bone and put it up where he couldn't reach it, but where he could smell it. The other one was to eat his dinner. And the third one was the tail squeeze. So hopefully you remembered all 3 of those. All right, we left off right here yesterday. Although Wool loved practical jokes, the funny thing was that he never really harmed other animals if he could help it. Of course, if something tried to hurt him, that was different. Then Wool could be dangerous. But he certainly wasn't the fierce and bloodthirsty kind of bird that owls are supposed to be. He wouldn't even go hunting on his own. If a gopher or a white rat happened to get loose on the lawn, he wouldn't touch it. However, there was one kind of animal he would attack, and that was a skunk. It seems that all horned owls just naturally hate skunks, though no one knows the reason why. What's more, horned owls are the only things I know of that will eat a skunk, and they even seem to like the taste. Our house in Saskatoon stood close to the river, and along the bank of the river was a regular jungle of bushes and poplar trees, which made an ideal place for skunks to live. Because they didn't have any enemies in town, the riverbank skunks had become so cocky they would stroll along the sidewalk in front of our place as boldly as if they owned it. That was before Wool came to live with us. Cocky as ever, one of the riverbank skunks decided to take a walk down Crescent Avenue one summer evening just after Wool had learned to fly. The skunk came strutting along the sidewalk, quite sure nothing in the world would dare to bother him. He ambled along, taking his own time, until he got under the overhanging branches of our poplar trees. Mother and Dad and I were having dinner. The dining room windows were open because it had been such a hot day. All of a sudden, there was a great swoosh of wings, and there on the windowsill sat Wool. Before any of us had time to move, he gave a leap and landed on the floor beside my chair. And he hadn't come empty-handed. Clutched in his talons was an enormous skunk. The skunk was dead, but that didn't help matters much because before he died, he had managed to soak himself and Wool with his own special brand of perfume. "Hoo, hoo, hoo, hoo," Wool said proudly, which probably meant, "Mind if I join you? I've brought my supper with me." Nobody stopped to answer. We 3 people were already stampeding through the door of the dining room, coughing and choking. Wool had to eat his dinner by himself. It was 2 weeks before we could use the dining room again, and when Mother sent the rug and drapes to the cleaners, the man who owned the shop phoned her right back and wanted to know if she was trying to ruin him. Wool didn't smell so sweet either, but he couldn't understand why he was so unpopular all of a sudden. His feelings must have been hurt by the way everybody kept trying to avoid him. After 2 or 3 days, when even I wouldn't go near him or let him come near me, he became very unhappy. Then an idea must have come into his funny head. He must have decided we were mad at him because he hadn't shared his skunk with us. So one day he went down to the riverbank and caught a second skunk and brought it home for us. By this time, he was so soaked in skunk oil that you could smell him a block away. Some of our neighbors complained about it, and so finally my father had to give Wool a bath in about a gallon of tomato juice. Tomato juice is the only thing that will wash away the smell of skunk. Poor Wool. By the time Dad was through with him, he looked like a rag mop that had been dipped in ketchup. But he got the idea, and he never again brought his skunks home to us. All right. The question is, what connection do you have to today's reading? So your job is to think of a connection to the part that I just read that reminds you of something, a story you heard or something that happened in your family or somebody you know, and to write it down in the comment box. I'm just going to tell you 2 connections that I have to this story. Number 1 is that my dog, Indiana Jones, or Indy for short, has gotten sprayed by a skunk twice in his lifetime. And the last time was this summer, and we had company over, and we were all having nice barbecue supper outside, and Indy went into the bushes at the back of our yard and got sprayed by a skunk right up close. And he came towards us, and we didn't know what had happened. And then as soon as he came towards us, we could smell it. And literally all of us got up and ran away from him. The smell was so bad. People were coughing and choking and sick to their stomach. It was so bad. So anyways, so we had to give Indy quite a few baths. Now, people used to use tomato juice, but all it does is mask the smell. So that means you have tomato juice smell over top of skunk smell. What people do now, if their pet gets sprayed by a skunk, is you use a combination of hydrogen peroxide, baking soda, and a little bit of dish soap, and you have to do it right away to get that smell neutralized. And so my dog does not like to be bathed, so that is not a fun job. So there, I'm just going to give you one connection to that. Oh, I'll give you the second connection. Here's the second connection to that story. When my grandfather was a teenager, he got sprayed by a skunk because he lived on a farm. And somehow, I guess the skunk was in a building and my grandfather went in to get something from there, and he got sprayed. And after my grandfather got sprayed by a skunk, he was never able to smell again for the rest of his life. So he could not smell baked bread or supper cooking or flowers or anything. So that shows you just how powerful a skunk spray can be. It can actually damage the eyes or damage the nose of another animal that it comes into contact with. So let's see what kind of connections you have to that.